Salut, ça va? Santé?
Coucou, bienvenue from France. Welcome back to the show where we talk about life, different perspectives, and a petit peu du français, usually with a glass of wine and sometimes a spritz. Thank you guys for listening. Welcome back to the show. Today's topic is daily life in France. The reason I thought this might be interesting is because we are having a major ant infestation in our old house. So what I mean by that is there is a missing piece to one of our doors. Our house is 150 years old, and one of the, like, kind of the, I don't know what you call it, like a wood, there's a piece of wood that's in between the door and the outside, and that broke. It like eroded because it's very old. And all of a sudden, this started maybe a few days ago, there was thousands of ants that just came in like through the kitchen. And I didn't really know what to do. My husband's out of town, so I was like, I need to go somewhere and buy some sort of ant spray. And then I thought, I have no idea where I would actually buy that in France. If I were in the US, I would know I could go to like a Home Depot or something like that. I could also order on Amazon. It would probably be there like later that day. I thought about ordering it on Amazon, but I thought that's going to take a really long time. And then I was like, should I go? There's something called Mr. Bricolage in France, which is like a hardware store. So I thought I would try there. Anyways, the reason I brought this up is because I realized that there are so many things about daily life in France that are very different from how I operated in the US and what my natural kind of go-to places were, and that there's a lot more like accessibility, one-stop shopping, availability to order things from Amazon like on a dime. And here, all of a sudden you have a problem and you're not really sure exactly what to do. So to finish my story, I ended up finding it at Carrefour City. So there's a big Carrefour, which requires driving to. And because I live in the city center and I don't have my French driver's license, I try to avoid driving as much as I can. I don't like it. I do everything by foot, or I guess I could take the bus. I've never taken the bus here, but it's also pretty available. So that said, I went to Carrefour City, which is something I could walk to. And then I had to look up the word for ant, which is fourmi. And then I had to find, I'm like, maybe there's a spray. And then I found these little, like, I don't know, they're like gel packets that seem to keep them out of your house. So TBD, I'm going to try all of this evening. They come back at the same time every evening. It's so bizarre. But anyways, so that's my little story about my ant infestation. And it's, oh, by the way, the spray smells really bad. And when I'm cooking in the kitchen at night, I'm like, oh, now I've got to smell this and cook. So anyways, I thought it might be fun to tell you a little bit about daily life in France. So I was going to go through just things that are pretty normal: doctors, dentists, grocery shopping, meal planning, the post office, Amazon France, nails, hair, spa, how you run errands, workday lunches, the bank, what the prices are of a lot of these things. So that's our episode for today. I thought I might start with the doctor because my kids are actually going later this afternoon because I have to take them to get their vaccine. So they're now 9 years old and 7 years old. So they need one more vaccine. When we moved here, the doctor I brought him all of the paperwork. My kids were 4 and 6 at the time. And the doctor was like, wow, they have had so many vaccines. You don't need any more for a while in France. So I'm not going to get into vaccine comparison in France versus the US because unfortunately that's like a whole nother topic I'm not well versed on and has become, I know, very political in the US. So that said, what I wanted to explain is when you go, you don't just go to the doctor and make an appointment for like your child's vaccine, for example. You go to the doctor, then they tell you what vaccines you need. Then they give you what's called an ordonnance, which is a prescription. And it's literally a printed out piece of paper that's stamped and signed by the doctor. Then you have to find a pharmacy. So then you go to the pharmacy, you hand them the ordonnance, and then they give you the vaccine in like this sealed bag. I actually have them in my refrigerator right now. And they ask you right away, are you going to be home within 15 minutes? Because it has to be refrigerated. So then I'm always rushing home to get the vaccine in the refrigerator. And then I have to bring the vaccine to the doctor, make another appointment, and then the doctor will administer the vaccine in my children's arms. So that's just like a small story of just some differences of like, you don't just show up once and everything's done. There's like multiple steps. I would say the thing I do like about the doctors in France, there is an app called Doctolib, which is amazing. You can book every single type of doctor on this app, and you can even research like from proximity to where you live. You can look at if they speak English. I will warn you, a lot of them say they speak English, and you get there and you realize that their English is very rudimentary. And now I'm at the point where my French most of the time is better than their English. And so I don't even look for that anymore. But it was super important to me when we first moved here that I had some English speaking doctors. I still would prefer English speaking doctors, and I still have a pediatrician that's English speaking just because there's so much vocabulary that I don't know. And that's one thing I think with health, you don't really want to get wrong because that could have some serious consequences. So doctors are, I would say, like pretty easy and good and reliable. Like you don't wait hours. Like when your appointment, it's your time, you get called, you talk about why you're there, and you're usually out within 30 minutes. And it's a pretty efficient process. I will say I've had friends who've had bigger, like more, challenging problems that goes beyond just a general practitioner. And I know that requires like making appointments different ways and seeing different doctors, et cetera. So there's some complexity when the problem gets more complex. Dentist. Dentist is another thing you can book on Doctolib, which is awesome. The dentists here are, I'm just comparing to the US, a bit more antiquated. Like the cleaning, to me at least, I've been to 3 different dentists here, does not feel like a very robust cleaning. Like they're still using kind of like old school tools, like the metal little pick and things. And there's not like this robust like cleaning. Like my teeth never really feel super clean after I go to the dentist. And then they really are only checking for like major problems, minor cavities. They always say, oh, you can wait or you can choose to have it filled. So there's not like this sense of like, you have to do this now. And there's also, I would say, like not as much of a, like they really say only go to the dentist once a year. I push that and go twice a year because I just feel like it's important. And then funny story, I feel like getting your teeth whitened was like a thing I just always did in California. They had this like really good Zoom whitening treatment that I would do once a year. And it like you'd sit in the office for 3 hours and your teeth would come out like 3 or 4 shades whiter. And it was funny. I've asked the dentist now a couple times in a row, do you offer any whitening services? What could I do for that? And he was like, why do you want to whiten your teeth? Your teeth look really white. And I realized that that's a very American standard of like how white we want our teeth. Like as an American, I'm like, well, the whiter, the better, right? And I think in France, it's not that same like perception. So he did end up giving me some whitening solution, which I'm yet to try. It needs to be kept in the refrigerator. Again, when you have a small fridge, it's like, why is there this huge whitening kit now kept in the refrigerator? But anyways, so dentists, yes, you can book that. It's pretty standard. I wouldn't say great, but I wouldn't say like terrible either. Okay, then let's talk about like routine things. Nails, if you get your nails done, hair, if you get a haircut, highlights, kids' haircuts. Okay, so nails, I don't know if you guys heard this, but they banned gel nails. So like they call it like semi-permanent, like the gel I was used to getting in the US. It's technically, I guess, banned in Europe as of last January. I still found a place that will do it, but I realize it must be pretty bad. And I've been taking a break from gel nails and just doing like a clear strengthening treatment for a while. Then I did find a place in X that is available to do gel nails if I choose to go back. But I don't know. I'm kind of in this like, maybe I just try au naturel for a while. I would say a lot of French women like do their own nails. I'm not very good at that. I can't seem to paint the left hand with the right hand. Wait, the left with the right. You know what I'm saying. So that's kind of one other thing I would just take note of. Hair. So I highlight my hair. I know I shouldn't. And I've been told multiple times in France how bad it is to highlight your hair, although I still think so many women do it. They are it's much more common to get like balayage, which is like, I would say less like they're more natural looking highlights than it is to do like foil highlights. I kind of do a combination just because I like being a little bit blonde, especially in the summer, and my hair is naturally dark. I had a really hard time finding a great hair salon. I know they exist in Paris. I wasn't going to go to Paris just for that. So I have been to a few, and I would say the language was a challenge. One of them, like, actually just downright refused to dye my hair because he said it was dyed too many times and therefore I should just go natural. And so it's less about what you want as like the client, which is in the US, like they would basically do anything, right? If you're willing to pay them money. In France, it's much more at their discretion. Like if they decide your hair is too damaged and they're not going to dye it, they're not going to dye it. And they don't really care what you think about that, which is interesting. I think it's sort of like that at a lot of places. Like in the US, we assume like the customer is always right or the client knows what's best. And here it's kind of the opposite. Like I'm the professional as the hair salon, so I am going to advise you. And therefore, my word is better than your word, even if you're paying me. So that's kind of like the general mentality, not in a rude way. I think it's just very cultural. So I finally found, and Camille, if you're listening, I'm so happy to have found you. She's French, has lived in London, is married to a Brit, and does a phenomenal job. Actually, there's a podcast episode with her. Her name's Camille Hart, and you guys should take a listen because she is just a lovely woman and she does a great job on hair. So if you guys ever need, if you're moving here and you want some advice on hair, I would highly recommend her. Okay, then the other thing I wanted to talk about is spa, like getting a massage. I rarely do this. My husband gives me 2 certificates a year, usually one on Mother's Day and one like around my birthday. And I save them. And so far, he's given me two at like, they're really nice hotels, like around the area that I can walk to. And then they allow you to kind of spend a few hours after, like using the pool or the sauna, etc. And every time it's kind of like, first of all, the massages are very good, but you have to be aware of like a couple of things that are going to be different. One, they give you these like paper underwear to put on that are basically super skimpy and they're literally paper. So you're meant to put those on under your robe. They love oil. So when they're giving the massage, your whole body will be like drenched in oil, including your hair, which takes a long time to get out. You can say like no oil, but that's sort of part of the experience. I think if you're used to like a conservative massage, it is not that. They will rub your stomach, your boobs, like the whole thing. There's not like a lot of, I would say, discretion on that. Like you can say they would ask you at the beginning if there's, certain areas you don't want a massage. I did not know this, and I've made the mistake multiple times being like, oh, now I'm kind of uncomfortable here. But that's just, I guess, part of the French way. There's usually a fragrance. So they let you choose like what kind of fragrance you would want. That's like either in the oil or sort of like infused in a diffuser. Obviously, there's usually lavender because we live in the south of France, which is lovely. And then a lot of them, and this is similar actually at all hotels in France, if they say they have a jacuzzi or like we would call it a hot tub jacuzzi, it's never hot. Like it is lukewarm. Like they call it, like they'll tell you it's like très chaud, which means like very hot, but I would say it's like maybe, I don't know, 60, 70 degrees. Like you're not going to get in as you would in like a hot tub or jacuzzi in the United States and be like, oh, there's like steam coming out. It's so hot. It's very lukewarm. There's still jets and bubbles, but it's not like the same experience. So just note that as well. So that kind of covers like, I would say personal hygiene care. Then I thought should get into like grocery shopping, meal planning, lunches, like during the week when you're working, like how does all this work? So I in the US used to like plan out my whole week. Like I would get groceries delivered on Sunday from kind of like two different places. I lived in California, so Whole Foods was one of them, and then usually like Safeway, which is kind of like just a standard grocery store. And that would be kind of like my meals for the week. I would get fish, meat, like vegetables, etc. It's so different here. I don't plan out my meals at all, except for that day, maybe the day before, but things will go bad super quickly if I were to plan out a whole week. So instead, because I live in the city center, I walk to the market. I would say like it's so close, and it's usually like a stop when I'm already taking the kids to the bus that I'll just swing by the market on my way home. And it's all fresh fruits, vegetables, olives, cheeses, like kind of everything you need. There's a poissonnerie, like fish truck that I would buy my fish from. There's sometimes like a butcher truck where I would get my meat from. And that's kind of my like go-to, but I don't necessarily know what I'm going to make unless I see what's there, because the only like fruits and vegetables that are there are what's in season. So I can't, like, let's say I felt like making zucchini. If it's not in season, I can't make zucchini. So like I have to sort of shop by what's there and then decide what I'm making. Like we just finished asparagus season. We're actually almost done with strawberry season. We're moving on to cherries and nectarines and apricots. And so I had no idea when I lived in the US, like what was really seasonal. I would just be like, okay, the kids eat broccoli. I'm going to buy broccoli. And now now I don't have to. I actually really have come around to enjoying this, that it's a bit of like, let's see what's there. And I've had to figure out new recipes with making new things. And that's actually been really fun and different. So that's kind of like one part of it, is like you're not like planning like you would necessarily in the US. And then for things like toilet paper, paper towel, napkins, like everyday standards, I call them, that I do kind of load up on. Like if I am driving, I will go to Carrefour. It's like the biggest and least expensive, and you can sort of bulk load everything and put it in your car. And then I usually just store that kind of stuff, because I'm just, first of all, don't like the experience of Carrefour. I find it like really overwhelming. I don't know where things are. You have to like put a token in to get a cart. Then you have to like basically self checkout. That's the other thing I would say at grocery stores. It's much more common to have self checkout. Like you're always scanning things yourself, and you should always bring your own bags. Like it's very rare that they have like plastic or paper bags that they're bagging things in. In fact, when I go to the US, I'm shocked how many, like just everybody just uses plastic bags. Like the automatically the checkout person will just start putting your stuff in paper or plastic. Here, there's no question. Like you have to bring reusable bags, or you have to buy a bag for €1, maybe a couple euros. That's again a reusable bag you're buying. It's very rare to find. They definitely don't have plastic bags. You might be able to find paper bags, but that's just one other thing. Coming back to Carrefour, like you need so many bags to put all of this stuff in, and then you're trying to haul that all out. It's just a big experience. So now I kind of do this locally. So I bought myself, my husband calls it the old lady cart. It's literally like one of those pull carts that I load up with heavy things. Like I buy kind of the opposite of what I did in the US. Like I would never bulk buy milk, but all the milk here is shelf stable. And so I bulk buy milk and I keep it. And then I just like take one, and after you open it, you have to put it in the refrigerator, but otherwise it's not refrigerated. And the same with eggs. So eggs are another thing that you don't refrigerate. So you just leave them in the carton. They're usually good for, I would say, like a few days up to a week, probably. And eggs here are really interesting because they are like, a lot of them are right from the farm, which is so cool. Like you can actually, they have them like kind of all together, and then you can pick like which eggs you want and put them in your own carton. And a lot of them even still have like the feathers on them, which I first thought was really creepy, but now I actually am like, wow, these eggs are so fresh. And you can tell because the color of the yolk is super bright, which is unlike when I make eggs in the US. Like the color of the yolk was usually, I don't know, like a pale yellow. So just like really nice to get healthy, good eggs here. And so, anyways, I walk with my cart. I bring all my stuff back. It is kind of like, I guess people would consider it maybe a hassle if you're used to like getting in your car. And by the way, if you live in the suburbs, like you're still driving. A lot of, I would say most of my friends drive to the grocery store. I'm probably one of the rare ones that just prefers more city living and walking and carrying my groceries. Although I have to say, when it's so hot like it is these last few weeks, that becomes a bit arduous. So I may go back to driving every now and then. And so meal planning, I talked about dinners. Okay, breakfast is another thing. Like, so the kids are used to sort of like, I would call it more of an American breakfast. So they, in the US, like I would buy them like frozen waffles, pancakes. I tried to get good ones, like the Whole Foods ones, like the Kodiak brands that had like protein or something. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, it seems so interesting that I did that. They don't sell anything like that here. There's one store that's called Picard, which is just all frozen foods. It's like, I thought it was really bizarre when I first moved here, and it's literally like a block from my house. And they have one thing of frozen waffles and one thing of frozen pancakes. My kids did not like them. I don't think they were sweet enough for them. So now this might be crazy, but on Sunday mornings, I make a breakfast for the week. So the kids get to choose, and then they have to choose the same thing because I can't make multiple. So I either make like a crepe batter, and then I just save it for the week, and I like just pour like morning crepes for the kids, or I make like homemade waffles that I just put in the waffle maker, and then I make enough for the week and then I refrigerate them and just heat them up. Or I do that with pancakes. I make like a huge batch of pancakes and then I just heat those in the morning for the kids. It seems like more work, but it's actually just like entirely pure ingredients. Like I'm making them all from scratch because one, there's not really like an option to buy like a pre-made box thing. And I realized that it's not really that much work. Like these pancakes and waffles don't really have that many ingredients and I always keep them on hand. Now I have like an entire like baking area where I have like all of my, patisserie flour, etc. And it's just become kind of my routine and I kind of enjoy it. It's like a Sunday morning, okay, I'm going to bake for a couple hours and it just sort of feels nice. So that's just one other difference. I would say if you're used to kind of like super convenient breakfast here, that doesn't really exist. Okay, so let's talk about lunch at home. So if you're working during the day, like my husband and I are, you kind of, I would say in the US, I would like go to one of those like big salad places or just like Uber Eats or have it delivered. Or I might make something if I have time, but usually I was on conference calls. So now I don't know exactly, like I'm still very lost on like what to do for weekday lunches. I usually eat like leftovers from dinner the night before, or I will like walk somewhere quickly and they do have like one salad place here. It's definitely not like the delicious American salads. There's like three ingredients. It's very like bizarre to eat a salad for lunch here. Like people eat more like heartier meals, not necessarily hearty like they're bad for you, but like it's more common to have like fish, vegetables, like what we might consider a dinner in the US is much more common here as a lunch. I still kind of do the American way. Like now I'm just making like my new thing is either to make like a Greek salad or like a tomato burrata salad because all the ingredients like the tomatoes and basil are really fresh right now. And so I typically do that, but I would say it's sort of like create your own situation. Once in a while, I will Uber Eats in like sushi or something that I just have a craving for. But there's not great options on like Uber Eats Deliveroo is the app here in France. But it's possible. And I do it probably more than I should just because I like still some of the convenience. But the options aren't like as robust as they were, for example, in San Francisco. Okay, which comes to running errands. So there is not necessarily like one-stop shopping, as I mentioned. So I'm just going to walk you through an example of like, let's say I want to get a few things for the week. Okay, like this was my morning yesterday because I had a little bit of extra time. So I wanted to get fresh bread. So I stopped at the boulangerie and I got a baguette and some fresh bread. Then I wanted to get fresh tomatoes, so I got those from the market. I wanted to get fresh flowers because I knew I was recording today, so I got these pretty sunflower lavender combination. Those I also got from the fresh flower market, so that's now 3 stops. Then I wanted to get wine. You can really only get like really good wine from the Cave. Like Cave means the wine store. So, and they're only open at certain hours. And then I stopped at a wine store, so now we're at 4 stops. Then I needed to print some things out for writing, for podcasts, etc. My printer at home is broken, so then I have to stop at like an actual place that is like an old school. They have old school computers and they will print things and you pay by sheets of paper. So there's 5 stops. Then I wanted to get cheese. So I stopped at the fromagerie, which is 6 stops. After that, there's a great Italian market. I knew I wanted to make Italian the next night. So I got fresh pasta, fresh pesto, and really good homemade tomato sauce from there. So we're at 7 stops. I won't keep going because this is probably not that interesting, but I just wanted to share it so you get the idea. Like, I now love shopping this way. It makes me feel like everything is special and unique in its own way. But it definitely takes a lot more time than if you, like I would in the US, maybe just go to one supermarket or go to Target and get all of this. There is a place called Monoprix if you're visiting that is much more like a Target. They've got like a food like section, they've got home goods, they've got clothes, etc. So it's much more like Target. I would say like not quite as good as Target. Well, their clothes are better than Target, but they don't have like everything. So that's just an example of running errands. Okay, the bank is another situation. There are ATMs like pretty much everywhere, but if you want to do something like, I don't, they're very big still on checks here. So if you want to like cash a check or get new checkbook, I can't believe I'm talking about checks. I hadn't written a check in the US and I don't even know. I don't even think I had a checkbook. Here they're very big. Like we have summer camps for the kids and they only take checks, like no credit cards. So you have to physically go there, handwrite out a check, which I had to learn how to handwrite a check in French because it is like the check looks very different from the US and it requires like different information. So that was a learning. And then you have to go to the bank to like get these checks. So anyways, you always need an appointment. And then what's interesting, if you end up banking in the French system, which you naturally will if you live here, you get a French bank card like a Visa or MasterCard. So if you make an online purchase, you have to go open up the app. It then says like, have patience. It's thinking. Then you have to click approve that purchase, go back to the website that you were on. And then that also processes. And then it says yours was approved from the bank. So you can never just buy something like with your bank card. You have to get it approved. If you do have like a credit card, I still have my American Express. Most places will not take that, especially online. So you end up kind of having to use this French bank card. It's just like one more step. It's actually kind of changed the way I shop, maybe in a good way. I don't really buy much online besides Amazon. Amazon France, I still use because I just find it super still convenient, even if it takes like 2 to 3 times as long as it does in the US and it doesn't have as many items. It's still good for like things that I have trouble finding. For example, the ant spray I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I immediately went on there. And even though I know it's going to take a while, I bought a few more ant products that I knew would kind of, clear out this issue more than just the one spray I got. So I don't really shop for clothes online as often as I did in the US for 2 reasons. One, the bank card situation, which I mentioned, I just find that really annoying and like one more step in having to make a purchase. And then I also don't like returns here. I really detest the post office. I find it like very overwhelming still. People are rude that work there. It's not a good experience. And therefore, if I were to online shop and something didn't fit, then I'd have to return it and I'd have to go to the post office to return it. And so I just now like pretty much shop like locally in the area of like boutiques I like, etc. So that's just one other thing I would say has kind of changed about living here and the way I've evolved my like daily routines. The last thing I will talk about just briefly, because I get asked a lot on, is prices. So I would say the prices in France are considerably lower than the US for most things. What do I mean by that? Okay, like this huge bouquet of flowers. I would say if I got this at Whole Foods, I would easily maybe pay $30 for. It was 12 euros. And I know the exchange rate's like a little bit different. So that's maybe about $14. The eggs I mentioned, like with the feathers still on them that I'm literally picking, 6 of them are around 3 euros. When I get my hair dyed here, like a full hair dye, like highlights and cut, would only be like maybe 150 euros at most. And that's like going to a good place. And I'm embarrassed to tell you what I spent in New York and San Francisco for a highlight. So I'm just not going to say it, but just understand it was considerably more than that. Nails are probably about the same. I would say food prices, though, are generally lower. Market is cheaper than like a grocery store, for example, which is also, it's fresh and cheaper. So I tend to do that more. But in general, I would say prices are a little bit less. I would say in general, prices are lower, but there is still inflation. There are still things that are affecting France just like they are in the US. And generally, if you're working for a French company, it's paying less than they would in the United States. And therefore, kind of just in general, costs aren't quite as high as the US. So I used to actually get like sticker shock the opposite way when I would come from, like, for example, living in California, and I'd go visit my parents in like Milwaukee or Chicago. I'd be like, oh my gosh, everything's so much less expensive. And now every time I go to the US, like no matter where I am, everything seems so much more expensive than living here. Like I would definitely be drinking a lot less wine, which might be a good thing actually in the US, because the wine prices at restaurants in the US, like what, $15, $20 a glass? Like I wouldn't even pay that for a bottle of wine, for a really good, decent bottle. Like in France, I would say the average bottle of wine is going to be at least decent is probably 10 to 15. And obviously 30 gets you like a really good bottle. And that's like if we go out to dinner and I get a glass of wine, I would say average price for a glass of wine is somewhere between 5 and 8 euros at like a pretty good restaurant. So that's just a point of comparison as well. So that's kind of a little bit about daily life in France. There's good, there's bad. There are, I would say, challenges just like everywhere. In general, I would say for the most part, I prefer this kind of daily life now. I don't know that I would have preferred this type of daily life on top of my like 50-hour week job in San Francisco. So I have more flexibility here, which is also why I enjoy, and I'm less like annoyed by things taking a little bit longer. So I just wanted to preface that with, this is also like a lifestyle change in addition to a country change. So that's just one thing to note as well. Okay, so wanted to, like I've been trying to do, I just want to say thank you guys for listening. And I really enjoy when you leave comments. So I wanted to read a couple comments today to close out our episode. So I have 3 comments that I wanted to read and just wanted to say thank you guys for sharing them. So this one is from Shannon. She's commenting on the episode from Are These the Best Years of Our Lives? She said, as a 50-year-old, I think we have various prime years. In our 30s, when we mature beyond our 20s and can start seeing the fruits of our labor. In our 40s, when we find our identity and inner peace. In our 50s and beyond, as we have more wisdom and have developed our roots. Each decade is to be celebrated and reflected upon with awe. Oh, thanks, Shannon. I love that. I think that's so well said and very, very true. Okay. Barbie 564, she's responding to what really happens when you move abroad. So she said, thank you for sharing your story and being vulnerable. I am also living in the ambiguous in-between of leaving my career in healthcare and carving out a different path for my family. Also trying to figure out relocating our family to Europe from Canada. So love your podcast all around. Oh, thanks, Barbie, and best of luck to you. I know that ambiguous in-between feeling is the hardest. So wishing you the best and hoping you get past that in-between period, and the path you choose, I'm sure will be wonderful. Okay, and then our last comment I will read today is from Britton Foxden. She's responding to what I've learned as an American living in France. She said, after 6 years in France, I can 100% relate to every one of these. Great episode. Thank you. Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad it was relatable. So, okay, with that, I will close out. Thank you guys for listening. And please let me know if you have any questions about daily life, or leave me a comment if you found this relatable as well, or any other things you'd like me to touch on in another episode. So thanks again. Au revoir. Bye.